Hello everyone, welcome, my name is Phoenix and this is the Consumer's Guide to Filmmaking. Civil War, 2024, Alex Garland. This film follows a journalist by the name of Lee. Right in the thick of a second American Civil War, Lee manages to capture all the action on her camera, documenting the carnage and disintegration of the American Union. However, her and a colleague named Joel plan a dangerous trip to Washington, D.C. and are aiming for the biggest score of them all. Pictures and an interview with the President of the United States. Being sidled with taggers on in the form of Lee's mentor Dave and a young girl named Jessie, the team of Lee and Joel must travel across what remains of the USA to snap their most important pictures. Of all the films I was going to see in theaters in 2024, of course I was going to catch the new Alex Garland film. And in my opinion, this film was definitely a very exciting, but a weaker entry into Garland's filmography. From a technical perspective, Garland is still at the top of his game, and now entering into the realm of war thrillers, he channels his talents into presenting a desolate and violent landscape. Using really wide shots and at times a documentary-esque way of shooting, he depicts the ghost town that would be America's highways, the refugees from within the nation trying to avoid the violence, and so much more. As this is a film about journalism, there are tons of cuts to still images captured by our characters. These images are not only really heavy and well framed, but serve an important character building purpose. Since this is a thriller about wartime, there are also a number of large set pieces revolving around combat. This is the area I think where Garland really spent his time and money. These action scenes don't shy away from blunt, grisly violence. These action scenes are full of incredible coordination with long takes aplenty. The amount of extras used in these sequences is more than I was really expecting, and it really impressed me. The final battle sequence in Washington was really impressive in terms of coordination and editing. The film is also quite a feat in terms of production design. Like I said, these battle sequences really show where Garland spent his time and money. Not only do we have lots of extras to coordinate, but we have plenty of shit blowing up and things getting smashed. What CGI there was in the film was either not really noticeable or blended in with practical effects. The sets in this film are also to die for. Lord, it must have been a bitch clearing some of these roads and highways and gussying up these buildings to look demolished. They also found some really fun locations to shoot in, such as that house next to the park attraction. That was cool. Music and audio also played a big role in this film. The latter, the audio design, in this is great. The guns in this film sound so realistic, and it really aids in the atmosphere. Those loud pops that actual guns make are more unnerving than those Hollywood thunder roars. Garland also really loved reveling in silence, and he knew that cutting out audio would aid in emotional impact with certain scenes. The former subject, the score of the film, is typical Alex Garland stuff. With Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow returning for this film, the score of this movie is their typical blend of industrial and alternative music. Lots of droning synths and guitars that really add weight to the action. The soundtrack is notable in this film because I feel it is quite eclectic and provides a nice juxtaposition at times. There's a scene where Jessie is having to see some grisly killing in combat for the first time, and over top we have a De La Soul song. That's pretty fun. The film ends on a song by the band Suicide, and that danceable post-punk goth vibe really was the nicest contrast with the bleak ending of the film. But on to the writing, which is sadly the weakest part of the film. It isn't bad, far from it, but what irks me is that Garland's usual attention to detail isn't present. Compared to a film like Annihilation, which I watched that day before heading out to see this, there wasn't much thought put into the world building of this particular film. Like, why did this war break out? What are the motivations of the seceding states? Like, even if it was just a short little text blurb or a montage of news footage, providing the audience with something they can infer things from would have done wonders for this film. One could argue that why this is going on isn't the point of the film. I would agree only insofar that why the Civil War broke out isn't the focus of the film. But, the problem I have with not explaining why this is happening is that the events of the film feel a little hollow as a result. It feels video gamey like Annihilation did, but it lacks the detail that Annihilation had. The characters don't feel like they're in a lived-in world and are just doing things to get from one set piece to the next. I will say though, that the focus of this film, the characters, is really interesting. I don't necessarily agree with the whole give journos a break spiel that Alex is going on with this film, as journalists in the modern time have devolved into hatchet men for whoever they cater to. They don't report truth and will slander people's names gleefully for not only brownie points, but clicks. I respect Garland though for arguing his point, as I can concede that war correspondents, like the character of Lee, are fucking badass and need more recognition. The arc between Lee and Jesse is so interesting in this story. From the beginning, we see that Lee is just haggard and has been through the ringer, while Jesse is the bright-eyed rookie wanted to break into the game. Jesse is shell-shocked initially seeing all the carnage, while Lee is right in the thick of it, capturing it all unbiased and unmoved. Over time, this dynamic pulls a complete 180. By the time they hit DC, Jesse is the badass going into battle, capturing the action without a moment's thought, while Lee has become shell-shocked and barely able to function. The ending of this arc is essentially a circling back to a conversation the two had while traveling to DC. Jesse asks if Lee would have photographed her if she was shot, and Lee says, "What do you think?" in more or less words. We see throughout the film that Lee has had to watch grisly things and do nothing about it, as her job is merely to document these happenings. When Jesse gets too close to the line of fire, Lee does the noble thing and takes the bullet for her. Unable to do anything else, Jesse captures it all on film, becoming the grizzled, battle-worn vet that Lee had become all in a matter of days. In our lead role, Kirsten Dunst plays the role of Lee, and she was perfectly cast for this. She truly comes off like she has seen some shit, and is just having none of Jesse's nonsense. Man, she looked tired, she sounded tired, and the subtle ways you could see her breaking were brilliantly performed. In the role of Jesse, we had Kaylee Spaney. She just crushed it in this role, and her depictions of horror and fear during the action sequences were really powerful. We also had Wagner Moura as Joel, and he was very charming in some of these scenes, but also knew how to really show that the war was breaking him. Overall, I think Civil War is Garland's weakest directed feature by a long shot. That isn't to say it's bad, because it's not. It's incredibly well crafted technically, it has great characters, and boasts great performances by the likes of Kirsten Dunst and Wagner Moura, and Kaylee Spaney. I just wish that Alex spent more time fleshing out this world and allowing us to really get enveloped in it. If you're a fan of Alex Garland or want a war thriller to throw on, I definitely think you should check this one out. And I am feeling a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10 on this one. It might be a little closer to a 7.5 than it is an 8, but I'd like to maybe reconsider that on rewatch. Catch you later, guys.